everybody. Now, I've been sharing a lot of stories about my paranormal experiences throughout my life, and of course one of my biggest stories has been going into the visionary state throughout my life, starting at the age of 6. And so I've been trying to tell out all these stories. I just think it's so much fun to sort of be able to get them all off my chest and kind of remember all the details about it, you know, in case it's useful to me later. If I don't lose this channel, this is where I'm storing all these videos, because I don't have any place else to store them. But I definitely have all the information in my head, and I would just have to start over again if by any chance I lost these videos. So today I decided to do a talk without making a list of points. You know, it's something that's been on my mind a while, and I wasn't even planning to make this video, but I got into a conversation with my dad this morning about how it seems like somehow music goes hand in hand with extraterrestrial contact, and possibly goes hand in hand with space travel. Now, if we go back and look at my storyline of when I very first went into visionary state that I can recall, my parents took me over to meet Billy, who was staying with Rosie Clearlight and her husband Howard. Okay, now this is just in visionary state, but it's super interesting just because I would connect with all three of these people later on in life, particularly Rosie and Billy. I didn't know Howard as much. Now, in the visionary state, there's all that stuff about how, like, this is my future husband and all that stuff, and that's where, like, I'm not really sure what to do with that, because it doesn't seem to be getting me anywhere. In fact, it's been very embarrassing having that done to me. But along with that is the discussion of space travel. So I kind of felt like, okay, so the more I talk about how I go and I run into this guy and it created a lot of drama, right? Just seemed like a lot of pointless drama. That's what I got for meeting him. Didn't seem very worthwhile in the long run. So at any rate, I feel like that part of the story distracts from this part of the story. First of all, I go into visionary state and I'm talking to extraterrestrials, and that's just a general term for beings that are not just other people. It's not like, you know, you're sitting here next to me, so I have to go into the visionary state to communicate with these beings. Now, what we got to look at is how conscious presence can be experienced. So earlier on I was talking about astral projection, or going out of your body. Now, what that entails, or what that tells us, is that conscious presence can be experienced inside the body and outside of the body. Now, or without a body. Some beings just don't need one. So when we go through the levels, now here's the thing, is the universe is a living system, and what we know the most about it is the physical part. That's kind of like I kind of think of it as the ocean surface. So like what we're studying as scientists, it's like we're studying the ocean surface. But when you go beneath the surface and you go into the higher levels, we become less dense and more plasmic, or like everything's just made of like light energy instead of atoms that are dense. And so I have a theory about that, you know, and that the living universe is expanding into empty space. And so this corresponds with science in itself, that you know, as the stars are spitting out material, it cools off and it makes solid matter. So we are solid because we're in the cooler part of the living universe. Now, within each galactic system, there are also different levels. So like that's why there are beings within the same galaxy that are not physical beings that are currently communicating with people on Earth. Now, about Rosie and Howard. Okay, so I met Rosie in '96, shortly after I briefly met Bill Lee. Me and Bill Lee never really hit it off and made friends, so I can't call him a friend. But he definitely knows who I am, so I'm going to say we were acquaintances. But Rosie, she's a friend, and that's why I'm here. This is the house where we lived together and where I stood by her when she died, okay? Now, Howard is supposedly the first white American man to run a Zen Buddhist monastery at Tassajara, someplace near San Francisco. So I really hope to make a trip out there and see this place. So his wife Rosie, the person that I was closely involved with, I see her as more of a yogini. She's always been into the Vedic knowledge, and their little joke is that they're Zen Christian. That at the end of the day, you know, she became a Christian minister, and so she wasn't like super preachy with me or anything, but she always brought back to the point that there is important truth in the Christian tradition that contains some of the most high information we need to gather. And I think a big part of that would be the Holy Trinity, that for ages there are spiritual beliefs that knew we had a Father in heaven, and there were spiritual beliefs that knew that there was a great spirit that moves through all of us, like the Native Americans talk about that, as well as our great-grandfather. But I think the Holy Trinity might be a newer revelation and understanding. So that's where that knowledge needs to be kind of handed out to the other religions or other people who have, you know, 2 out of 3 parts or something like that, right? So that's just my theory on how that was supposed to be spread out, because I've read the Urantia book, at least an important part of how spiritual information gets dispensed on Earth, which a lot of spiritual information that gets dispensed on Earth may come from space travelers. Well, that's a fun thought. So there's space travelers, but then there's your own good intuition. So you want to create like a synapsis. So we build that with each other. So that's how we build empathy with each other. And if you're working with other people that also want to build a synapsis with the universal center, that's what we call our Father in Heaven, then you can also tie a direct connection to what we call God, what we call Jesus, and between whatever the heck we are and the most high existence in the living universe are so many levels. And that's why we have, you know, possibly, you know, created beings of higher order, such as angels and demons, that are just kind of permanently there. And then there are people that live in the mortal realm. So we're in the evolutionary mortal realm. So we're the ones that have to do this whole dying and reincarnating bull crap. And then, but between us and them, like right here in our galaxy, our quality of life is directly related to the amount of life force energy we're receiving. So we're at a place in the galaxy where we're kind of like, if this was the center, we're closer to the edge. So, you know, we're getting some life and light out here. Otherwise we wouldn't have this planet with everything in it, you know. But as you come closer to that big glowing ball, the galactic sun, or you spend more and more time in the photonic area that has a lot more light and life in it, those are the planets that are experiencing a higher level of existence. Like the Pleiadians are like maybe a couple steps above us, so they're still kind of people-ish. They look like blonde-haired people. I think that might be why we have blonde-haired people on Earth, is we could be part of the Pleiadian system, and so this is part of the genetic trait that is shared with them, actually. So some people are just like a product of Earth, but other people are kind of a product of earthlings and beings from other planets, and also a product of souls coming from other planets. So that could be what Rosie and I have been, and so she was kind of part of my life to educate me. So I felt like coming to stay with Rosie, I got a lot of education about the whole extraterrestrial agenda. So now go back to 1982. We had no way of knowing who these people are. So we lived in Key West, and it took me till 2002 to be able to ask Rosie if she's ever been to Key West. And she's never been there, and she doesn't know Bill Lieb. Okay, so the people who were presented in my very first visions that I can think of was Rosie and Howard, along with Bill Lieb. Now, since I've gotten to know Rosie, she told me about the times that she has seen and been on spaceships. With her second husband, she was in Europe, and she saw a spaceship. They were kind of camped out in their van somewhere. Maybe there wasn't very many people around, and they saw a spaceship arrive in the sky, and it conjured up a thunderstorm just so it could absorb the lightning. So that's how they charged their batteries, because when she saw the spaceship, she was watching it, she was just like, oh wow, this is so cool, man. And then meanwhile her husband was like, ah! he was hiding his face under the pillow the whole way, but she started communicating with telepathy and explained, well, this is how we charge our batteries. And the funny thing is the husband who was hiding his face was the one who was the science professor named Grant. And so he was the one that was trying to write letters and help bring about disclosure. Now, Rosie tells me he committed suicide. He had AIDS and he was probably in a lot of pain and he was really depressed because, you know, he was kind of living out of his van and sleeping in his daughter's driveway. And Rosie says, you know, she really doesn't think he would have done that. And so she's kind of wondering if that was set up because when they assassinate people, they find out stuff about you. And if you're talking about suicide, they're going to find you dead by suicide, even though it could have been a black ops operation. So that's kind of like stretching, you know. I mean, it's a very good possibility he didn't die by suicide because he was fighting for disclosure. And he was the one that's hiding his eyes during the spaceship encounter. Well, later on when Rosie was married to Howard, so this is her third husband and the last person she'd be married to, they were beamed up and they were inside of a vessel where they were both laying down. It seemed like a triangular shaped room and it just seemed to be kind of like all one color, you know, and they were kind of laying on this a flat area that kind of comes out of the wall, you know, so just kind of, so these two are laying there and Rosie was communicating with the aliens and they said they're the kind of aliens that just don't have a body. And it would be pointless for them to take form because if they did, you know, they just take form of somebody you like, you know. So if you ever watch the movie Contact, that's kind of what the lady in that story was told. Like, you know, we don't really have a form, but we're willing to take a form that you recognize, like your dad. So I think this goes back to when I'm going into visionary state, I could be experiencing something similar. It's sort of like the parallel dimensional timeline. It's like a reflection of this reality. So it's like, that's what helps give you an actual glimpse. But I feel like it's also sort of a temporary construct for us to go into during the point of contact and communication. So like back in 1992, none of these people are really the people I know or met later in life. So like Rosie and Howard have no actual memory. But the important thing about those two being involved in that vision is these are the people who went on the spaceship where they were told these extraterrestrials don't have a form. They can only take shape as somebody you'd like to see. So for me, going into visionary state could be a very similar thing where I'm speaking to extraterrestrials who appear to be Rosie and Billy. So this is why, you know, Billy in real life probably doesn't remember being there and probably doesn't remember me from anywhere, right? Unless he also has visions, there's a chance that he could have visions because he seems like he's very psychically sensitive, so he may be psychically gifted, which contributes to his ability to make music at a higher level. You know, same for his other friends like Kevin Key. I think these guys are capable of channeling, and that's what makes their music a little bit beyond the normal rate of quality that music has. So anyways, I think that my education in extraterrestrial stuff is kind of coming together with my desire to go into music. So that might be why Billy, ding, like, so maybe Billy was put there because it's helping me to see the connection between the extraterrestrials and music, and that some music to this day, like some of the trance techno I'm listening to, I was listening to one of my favorite DJs, Christopher Lawrence. He was advertising some festival that's coming up and they're going to have music all day. There's going to be alien abductions. I think he's just kidding around, but when I listen to that kind of music, I feel like this is definitely the kind of music that helps channel aliens, you know? It helps them channel the galactic. So sometimes the people writing the music are really only kind of creating a conduit for the other being. So maybe this is the education I'm supposed to get here. So anyways, back to Billy and back to that time. So the very second time I went over there, then me and Billy went outside to play. And so he told me all his stuff too. So you'd have to go back and watch all these videos. I'm not going to explain all that. The only thing I really want to point out in this video is how it ties in with the extraterrestrial agenda. So you look at Rosie and Howard. I mean, that was like totally her thing. Like she was the one in her family that was the UFO contactee. and she's the person that I get a great deal of education from about this subject. Whereas Billy, we're outside playing in the backyard. We had this thing, it was like a make-believe spaceship. I didn't really like it because it was just square and ugly, and so it was sort of like something where I thought, okay, maybe we're just playing make-believe, you know, we're climbing on Billy's little make-believe spaceship, right? So something, you know, even at that age, I used to like to play make-believe, so I was kind of open to either, or maybe Billy's just, you know, somebody with a really good imagination, or there's some truth in this, because he told me more than once, I think, that day, when he kind of filled me in on the whole thing, and made me give him a hug, ew. He said that someday we're going on a spaceship ride, because he, you know, asked me how I'd like to marry him, but then he said, how would you like to go on a spaceship ride, you know? Then he told me that someday we are, and so I think I tried to come back looking for Billy one more time, and I caught him when I was coming up F Avenue, and he had that dog with the big bushy tail, and he came over, and he tried to remind me one more time about the I'm Billy, I'm gonna see you later in life, and so he kind of had to go run by a couple of those basic points that he keeps saying we'll be married and playing in a band, but he's also talking about we're going on a spaceship ride, so who knows? So you're coupling this information together with this information, getting married and playing in a band almost seems like it ain't never going to happen, but the spaceship ride almost seems a lot more likely to happen at the rate we're going. So let's see, so I'm trying to look at where things tie in, is that, you know, I lived really close to the Navy base, and when I was going to school, probably around 6th or 7th grade, we went to the Navy base for an air show. And that's where I thought I saw Billy as a grown-up. And then he came to my Taekwondo class. Now, the only correlation I'm going to make is it got me paranoid a little bit later on. Like, I'm wondering if there's any connection between me and the Navy, because as soon as I graduated, they called me up and tried to recruit me, you know. And so when I ran up by Rosie, I told her I thought, you know, they just probably call everybody. And she goes, Jody, the reason they were calling you is because they know who you are. Now, a little later on, after I moved to Denver, I would say in 97, that's when I started hanging out with this guy named Dan. You know, I just liked him because we could talk about weird stuff all I want, you know, and he said that he was once in the Navy, and that they do take people seriously. If they find you to be psychically inclined, they try to recruit you into their special programs for UFO research. Now, he dropped out because he didn't like the way they were handling extraterrestrials. But, and again, Dan's also a big liar, so who knows? I mean, he's got a good story, and there may be some truth in it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he's lived it. Now, I also have visionary slips too, so along with that, I'm being told that the Navy does take an interest in people who are psychically inclined. Now, maybe there's a half a chance they know who I am, and when they find people to be psychic, maybe they use those people to gain information that's not being volunteered, because I went and talked to my Kung Fu teacher, Grandmaster Sin Kwang Te, about this. You know, much later, after I moved to Big Fork, I got him on the phone and talked to him a little bit, and that's when he was the one who filled me on how the governments around the world do take psychic awareness seriously, especially remote viewing, and they use remote viewing to locate their enemies' weapon systems. Okay, so that's why, you know, if the Navy were interested in me, maybe they know that about me, and that makes me kind of paranoid that, you know, I was told later on in life that I had some military guys looking for me because they wanted some information, and I'm not sure if they're talking about something my Grandma Smith knows, or because they found out I'm psychically gifted. Now, tying in the extraterrestrial agenda here, it's becoming super relevant. Like, it seems like more and more people want to talk about, you know, seeing spaceships in the sky, and there's a lot of cool videos where there are officers from the military, you know, like high-ranking officers are coming out and saying that they know there's extraterrestrials in the area. And from what I've read, the Navy are the ones that are the most on top of the situation, and that they have a lot of information that they don't like to share. It's just like all those movies, you know, like the Men in Black and all that. They want to keep the public from having to worry about it, right? So anyways, I think something I really want to bring up is how probably within the last year or so before Rosie died, that's when we saw Putin and Joe Biden on TV having this discussion about, you know, if this and that happens, we're going to have to respond to that. And I'm just going, uh-oh. I said, these people are getting ready to blow this place the fuck up. And Rosie's like, Jody, don't worry. She said, my guides are telling me that they will, they're going to help us. And if something like that happens, they'll pick you up and set you down so fast you won't even see it, you know. So that's just it. Rosie's had kind of telepathic communications with her guides ever since she's been in contact. Now, she doesn't have a whole lot of control over it. Sometimes they respond to her and sometimes they don't. But she really wants to assure us that these extraterrestrials that exist on an invisible level are here to help us, and that includes myself and maybe certain people that are tied in with me. Now, when Rosie died, or she was about to die, I had to start calling around and talking to everybody, and you know, she's always told me that she doesn't talk to her family because they don't like her that much, and a lot of it is because they think she's crazy, you know, like she's what I consider to be like a true hippie, you know, like a true West Coast hippie from the Berkeley area. And so they think she just fried her brains tripping on too much acid. And not only that, but dementia runs in the family, and she's got an older sister that's in a nursing home with a really bad spell of dementia, a bad case of dementia. And so I realized, oh, okay, you know, because Rosie seems to be so intelligent and so well educated, but she's made a lot of really bad decisions too. I've had to been dragged along for, so I absolutely kind of hate that part of dealing with her. But she's also like a kind of an open vessel to communicate with the extraterrestrials. So I was always kind of trying to get stuff out of her. Like I was really trying to get her to help me understand the whole Bill Lieb thing, for example, and he's really a hard one because he doesn't communicate. But something that she assured me, so like it seems like the Billy in the visionary state loved me and loved me and loved me and just insisted, whatever you do, don't forget me. But the Bill Lieb in real life just seems to be so aloof that you just can't get through to him, and he just doesn't seem to be that interested. And so anyways, you just get a lot of mixed signals there. So I've been hoping that Rosie would help me to resolve the Bill Lieb thing. And she says, Jody, he's tickled. So this could be somebody who simply isn't communicating. So he's always made it very complicated for me because he won't communicate. And that's the bottom line. Now, I think since I'm on the topic of Bill Lieb, I just want to bring up something about him, is that somebody once said that he had a UFO experience, and I've never really found the confirmation to that, so I kind of wonder if there's any truth to that. And he wrote a very funny song. It's called Living the Lie, and he was singing about, he thought he was fucking an alien, and he thought it was a girl. So he thought his girlfriend, or I guess he found out his girlfriend was nothing but an alien. So I don't know if he's talking about somebody in real life that some people just, you know, they wear such a good facade. You fall in love with the facade, but then when you find out who the real person is, they're actually a stranger. So maybe that's what he's talking about. And it's really hard to say exactly what he's talking about. So I did make a funny joke. You know, I drew a picture of Bill Lieb and an alien having sex. And when all that started sinking in, I was like, holy shit, you know, like, so if you've been paying attention to my visionary state stories, when I was 11, going on 12, I was just finishing up 5th grade, and I had this little boyfriend that we had a secret relationship. But what happened when I was in visionary state, it's as if I went over to Juan's house and met Billy over there. So Billy told me that he wanted to be the first person to make love to me because other people are going to disrespect me and hurt my feelings. So he's absolutely correct. So he was doing stuff like teaching me how to kiss and all that stuff. And then now in hindsight, I'm like, oh my goodness, Billy was just an alien. Well, Bill Lee wrote this song about making love to an alien, and he thought it was a girl. Well, I have the exact same problem. Is, oh my goodness, I think I've made love to an alien, and I thought it was my little boyfriend Billy. Well, thankfully there's that David Bowie song to help, you know, fix this all up. So David Bowie's written a number of songs about learning to love the alien, so maybe that was something I needed to experience. So I don't know. I mean, that's like, this is where my story gets kind of scary, and it sounds a lot like a horror movie. It's like, oh my goodness, I made love to an alien, but it was very nice, so I can't complain. But just knowing that it was an alien, now I'm shocked. At any rate, back to Rosie being the only ET contactee now. Her oldest daughter, I'm kind of thinking, you know, she's starting to become more psychically inclined, and she's like learning to be an energy worker and stuff. Now, most of her family just thinks she's nuts, right? So, and when she died, like, man, people were just like, that's where I really figured out Rosie's condition. So I feel like maybe that's why I had to spend time with Rosie, because by being a UFO contactee can be very alienating, particularly if you try telling people about it. Then people are like, whoa, dude, step away, step away. I mean, I'm stepping back from this. Like, people want to step back from it, and people will abandon you because they don't understand it, you know? So that's the sad thing about, you know how we're fighting for gay rights, you know? I think we should fight for, you know, people that are UFO contactees to have rights too. Like, if we want to talk about the time where we're contacted by extraterrestrials, no one should have the right to be mentally abusive towards us, which is pretty much what I've been experiencing. So I've been contacted by extraterrestrials. It makes me look like I'm a horny groupie that wants to do it with a hot, sexy rock star. And so instead of acknowledging that I'm going into visionary state and talking to extraterrestrial, we've been focusing all this attention on what a bad person I am, because, you know, people who fall in love with rock stars and movie stars and other such celebrities are fucking morons, right? So that's kind of where I feel like the dynamic of my visionary state experience is meant to do that. You know, it's like, so it's part of the my personal development and all these stages of realization I need to go through and whatever and stuff like that. But the bottom line here is starting in 82, when I started going to these visionary slips, that's where you're going to talk to extraterrestrials. And Billy was an extraterrestrial, but the Billy in real life, he almost seems like a mere mortal that has no concept of extraterrestrial life whatsoever, or at least he's oftentimes hip to hip with somebody like that. So if you've ever seen the TV show Bewitched, you know, it's about a witch who married a mortal, and he wants her to like fit in. So he's constantly trying to tell her not to do magic, like she's not allowed to do any witchcraft or magic anymore. And her mother's like, see, I told you you shouldn't marry that jerk, you know. So her family thinks he's a jerk because he wants her to quit doing magic, but she still slips and does it anyway. So that's kind of how I feel about someone like, you know, Bill Lee. It's like, he's like this old dragon wizard married to a mortal, and they're like trying to stop him from doing magic because they're trying to make him like, you know, just a regular, you know. I just feel like, okay, when I saw, when I look in on Bill Lee's life, I'm just going to put it to you like this. The people that he keeps in his company, I feel like they're trying to like turn him into a yuppie, and instead of letting him be the dragon wizard that he is. So I'm really not sure. So I kind of think the aspect of Bill Lee, you know, is me trying to go into the music business, having to decipher the exact situation I'm going into. And I've been procrastinating all these years, because I'm not sure exactly what to do. And now I'm finally putting it all together, and that what it has to do with is, you know, everything I've learned out of my life has been part of my creative process. So let's say I do get my act together and do some music. All this stuff has been part of my creative process, understanding how UFO contact, extraterrestrial contact ties in with music and space travel is going to be the key to my success if I ever experience that. So at any rate, before Rosie died, her daughter called up, and so we put her on the speakerphone and we all talked together. And I need to tell you this story. It's kind of important confirmation to anyone who needs to hear it. Now, this is somebody who doesn't normally think much about UFOs and all that junk, but is somebody who's starting to work on, spiritual awareness and energy work. So she was driving from Montana to Colorado, going down Highway 90, going down I-25. So I-25. So she was like halfway through Wyoming on I-25 going south. And so her and her husband and the entire car, I wouldn't be surprised if they had dogs and all kinds of luggage in there. And it got picked up and it got moved over. I kept saying South Dakota, but I think the Devil's Tower is actually in Wyoming near the border of South Dakota. So I don't remember what road they're on, but it's just another major highway going south past that Devil's Tower. So they went from I-25, they went boom. It was like they just felt like the car dematerialized, it rematerialized. Next thing you know, you're going down the highway and they're seeing the Devil's Tower up here, and they had to take an entire hour to get back over to I-25. So this goes hand in hand with me saying, oh my goodness, Rosie, these people are getting ready to blow this place the fuck up. She goes, don't worry, Jody, they're just going to beat me up and set you down so fast you won't even know what happened. Well, that's what Sherry and David experienced going down I-25. They got, zoop, oh, it was like so nice and easy. She said it was kind of a nice, pleasant experience. It felt kind of good, It's like, can't get like a body high out of it. So it's to demonstrate that it can be done. And the reason that I think it's special that she was able to tell us when she did was because Rosie was dying of cancer, and it probably happened within the last couple of weeks of her life. So it was probably like a really great form of reconciliation to where, like, I'm sorry I never believed you all these years. I needed to see it for myself. So Sherry ended up walking away knowing that her mother was right all along, but the rest of the family are just like, I don't know about her. So, well, Sherry kind of had, I don't know if she had a meltdown, if that's the word for it, but she decided to get rid of everything she owns. Like, she took all of her pictures and everything and burned it in a fire. And I don't know, like, if she kept her business or not, or, doing something like that to get the money to keep coming. But she went away to a spiritual retreat where she doesn't want to be contacted by the outside world at all. So I'm thinking between the alien experience or the UFO experience and her mother dying of cancer so abruptly, it was like a life-shattering experience for her. Like, she went someplace where they focus on how we need to forgive others. So maybe there's a big part of her who needed to forgive her mother, because it's as if Rosie wasn't always there for them, and particularly her daughter Lisa. Lisa's probably got a lot to forgive, because there were times where I felt like I can see what their issue is. Rosie just sort of flutters off and she'll say, well, that's because Howard dragged me off. Howard would just get a hair up his ass to move, and okay, we're moving by, and then just had a really wild so I love listening to Rosie's stories. So I have some older stories about when I knew Rosie and stuff, but maybe I'll come back to those and I'll review those and make sure I get all those stories organized, because I feel like living here in Montana is where I'm really getting my education about extraterrestrial communication. So it's like a big part of my spiritual training. And over the past year and a half since she died, I've been just sort of processing this all and going, oh, I get it, So I was really kind of pissed off when I thought, now here I am stranded in Montana, all because, I'm running away from my friends and I'm running away from my family because they don't listen to me and they don't believe me. But at the same time, it's a blessing in disguise, because this is a very important location for a number of reasons. So like if the World War III breaks out, I would much rather be up here than in Denver. And so I'm trying to establish a home base that I can travel from. So I want to go spend a little time in Denver, but I want to be able to get back up here. So anyways, you guys, if you were here to listen to me explain that we are in contact with extraterrestrials, and they are able to pick us up and put us down super easily. So it doesn't necessarily mean they will do that for you, but they've definitely demonstrated that to Sherry. Now, when you receive confirmation, sometimes it's meant for you to hear, because it's going to apply to you at some point. So that makes me wonder, when I think back to 1982, I was told I'm going to be taking a spaceship ride. Now, I haven't seen it happen yet, but I'm thinking, well, at least the visionary state experiences is a point where I have been in contact with extraterrestrials and have yet to experience the spaceship ride. So anyways, I really wanted to share this. A super important part of what I think I'm experienced by going into visionary state is that we really need to work on communicating with extraterrestrials. So it's kind of like if you could go to an elder that's lived for over 100 years and they've been meditating on a mountain, you could probably get a great deal of wisdom out of them. But imagine if you meet an elder that's been around for thousands of years, if not more than 1,000,000 years, and they've seen other parts of the universe. I mean, and come on, guys. I mean, don't you want to listen to what they've got to teach us? So I would love to listen to what an extraterrestrial has to teach us. I don't see why someone would think that's a form of mental illness. I think it's crazy to turn it away. It's like, imagine you're getting a scholarship to a universal master and you're like, no thanks. At any rate, you guys, I think I covered the topic, that Billy was an alien, and he's the one that told me that we're going on a spaceship ride. And then the belief in reality, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do with him, except that he reflects the part of my life where I'd like to go into the music business. And he had a really funny song that I could relate to that, oh my goodness, I may have made love to an alien. And then, at any rate, I'm working on getting myself into a place where I can create a studio that I could write music. And so I've realized, okay, all the training I've had over the years with the extraterrestrial contact, the breathing and meditation that comes from the Vedic knowledge is super important. That's where Rosie and Howard have a Vedic education. And with me going to the Shaolin Kung Fu, get Vedic education on breathing meditation, along with Taoism, which has to do with universal mastery. Okay, so I can take my education and all these areas, and then I combine it with the process of making music. And then what's happening next is I will help to facilitate not only information that needs to be shared, but there's just certain vibes and frequencies that we need to be exposed to, and it's going to prepare us for some of the assists that we receive. So when we receive assistance from the extraterrestrials, we need to be put through some preparation, so you get some education and may even alter the way we vibrate or behave or something like this. So we need to make some adjustments. And so that's where maybe having these big festivals with the right music, you can get a lot of people together, and with the aspect of the morphogenic field of intention. So it's one thing to do this alone. So that's where, you know, to pray to God or to Jesus, or even witches know you gotta get a group of people. What it does is it makes your efforts exponential. So if you hang out with other people who hope to achieve extraterrestrial communication, and if you hang out with a number of people who are also in the process of preparing for space travel, it's going to be exponential in your achievement of that state of being that you need to have the right state of mind. And you may have to do a frequency shift and make some adjustments to how you're functioning. So at any rate, back in the 70s, we called it kosmish music and we called it space music. And part of the reason for that is because it simply sounds foreign. But there is a very good chance that that music was already serving as a conduit for channeled information and preparatory for our space travel day. So you guys, I don't want my video to be too long, or I will just, you know, take a million years to upload these. But sometimes I have a lot to say and I just don't want to hesitate to say it. So I really hope I've covered the topic on, for me, going to the visionary state and meeting Billy. If you really look at the big picture, I think the bottom line is we are getting ready for extraterrestrial communication, and we are preparing for the possibility of space travel, or at least assistance from extraterrestrials using space travel technology to help us to avoid unnecessary suffering and stuff like that. So the reason extraterrestrials are aware of our problem is because we're all tied together, and they know somebody out here suffering. So that's where we're getting a lot of confirmation that like when they started developing nuclear weaponry, the UFOs were showing up in droves. And so like a lot of us are afraid of what's going to happen, you know, like what if, you know, some people are already in war, but then there's other people like here in the United States, we're wondering, what are we going to do if it comes to our country, and what are we going to do if they blow this place the fuck up? Well, in theory, or at least the idea I'm getting, is we are receiving assistance from galactic beings that know what's happening, and they don't want to allow it. So there's a lot of YouTube videos out there, and a lot of people are putting, I call it urban folklore, but I think the longer I learn about it, the more I see the reality in it. So again, it's like there's a battle for a consciousness, there's a battle over spiritual truth. So there is a portion of it out there that's absolutely true, and there's a larger portion of it that's out there to create a distraction, and that's why we have all those fake UFO videos and stuff to discourage us from making that connection in reality. At any rate, let me get going and we'll talk to you soon.